My parents chose the golden child over me until her life fell apart. Growing up, my parents had a golden child, and it wasn't me. My sister got the car, the college money, and all the praise, while I got ignored. But years later, when her life completely fell apart, suddenly I became their only hope. And that's when I finally said no. I grew up knowing one thing very clearly. In my family, I was never the favorite. That title always belonged to my older sister, Emily. Emily was what everyone called perfect. Straight A's, captain of the soccer team, charming smile, and somehow she could do no wrong in my parents' eyes. Meanwhile, I was just Alex, the quiet one, the forgettable one. If Emily got a B on a test, my parents would say, "It's okay, sweetheart, you tried your best." If I got an A minus, "Why not an A plus? You clearly didn't work hard enough." That was the difference between us, and it stayed that way for years. By the time we were teenagers, the favoritism had become impossible to ignore. Emily got a brand new car on her 16th birthday. I got a card. Not even money inside, just a happy birthday written in my mom's handwriting. My dad laughed and said, "Be patient, Alex, you'll get something when you deserve it." But somehow, Emily always deserved everything. When Emily crashed that brand new car 3 months later, my parents blamed the weather. When I accidentally scratched my mom's car while parking, they made me pay for the entire repair with money from my part-time job. That was when I realized something painful. In this house, Emily wasn't just the favorite, she was untouchable. When it was time for college, things got even worse. Emily chose a private university across the country. Tuition was insane, but my parents didn't hesitate. "We'll support you no matter what," my mom told her proudly. They paid everything: tuition, apartment, food, spending money. Meanwhile, I got accepted to a great state school. I was excited until my dad sat me down. "We can't afford to support 2 kids," he said. I stared at him. "You just paid Emily's full tuition." "Yes," he said calmly, "but Emily has potential." That sentence stayed with me for years. Emily has potential. Apparently, I didn't. So I worked 2 jobs, took out loans, and struggled through college mostly alone. 5 years later, life looked very different. I had graduated, got a stable job in tech, and slowly started paying off my loans. Emily, she dropped out after 2 years, switched majors 3 times, then moved back home. No job, no plans, but my parents still treated her like she was destined for greatness. Every time we had family dinners, my mom would say things like, "Emily just hasn't found the right opportunity yet." Meanwhile, they asked me, "So when are you going to make more money?" I stopped visiting as often after that. One night, I got a call from my dad. His voice sounded stressed. "Alex, we need help." That sentence shocked me. My parents had never asked me for help before. Apparently, Emily had gotten into serious trouble. Credit card debt, unpaid loans, a failed business idea, total debt, almost $70,000, and my parents had already drained their savings trying to fix it. Then my dad said something I'll never forget. "We thought maybe you could help your sister." For a moment, I couldn't speak. The same sister they chose over me my entire life, the same sister they said had more potential, and now suddenly they needed me? I drove to their house the next day. Emily was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone like nothing was wrong. My mom looked exhausted, my dad looked defeated, and suddenly everything from my childhood came rushing back. The favoritism, the excuses, the sacrifices I made while Emily got everything. My mom finally said softly, "Alex, you're doing well now. Maybe you could loan Emily the money?" Emily didn't even look up from her phone, just said, "Yeah, it would really help." No apology, no embarrassment, nothing. That's when I realized something. They had never actually learned anything. To them, I was still the backup plan, the responsible one who would clean up Emily's mess. And for the first time in my life, I said no. You would have thought I committed a crime. My mom started crying. My dad looked angry. "Family helps family," he said. I looked straight at him and replied, "Did family help me when I worked 2 jobs in college?" Silence. "Did family help me when I took out loans because all the money went to Emily?" Still silence. Emily finally looked up and said, "Wow, you're really bitter." That was the moment something inside me finally broke. I laughed. Not angrily, just tired. "Yeah," I said, "I guess I am." Then I stood up and walked out. I didn't speak to my family for almost a year. Then one day my mom called again, but this time her voice was different, quieter. Emily had finally gotten a job. Not a glamorous one, but a real job. She was slowly paying off her debt, and for the first time, my parents admitted something. We made mistakes. They never fully said the words, "We treated you unfairly," but it was the closest they had ever come. And honestly, that was enough for me to start healing. Sometimes families create golden children, and sometimes the overlooked child becomes the strongest one, not because they were loved more, but because they had to survive without it. A few months after my mom called to say they had made mistakes, things seemed calmer. Emily had a job at a small marketing company. Nothing fancy, but it was something. My parents sounded proud again. Not proud of me, of course. Proud of Emily. She's finally getting her life together, my mom told me during one of our phone calls. I just said, that's good. I had learned something over the years. Lower your expectations and you won't be disappointed. Eventually, my parents convinced me to come over for dinner again, first time in almost a year. The house looked the same couch, the same family photos, but one thing had changed. For the first time ever, there was a photo of me on the wall, my college graduation photo. I stared at it for a second. It felt strange, almost like I was visiting someone else's family. At dinner, Emily talked nonstop about her job, her coworkers, her big projects, her future promotions. My parents listened like she was giving a TED Talk. My dad even said, "I always knew you'd figure things out." I almost laughed because the truth was they had said the same thing every time Emily failed before, but this time I stayed quiet. For once, I didn't want to argue. About an hour into dinner, Emily casually mentioned something. "Oh, yeah, I'm thinking about moving soon." My mom smiled. "That's wonderful. Did you find an apartment?" Emily shrugged. "Not exactly." Then she looked directly at me, and suddenly I knew where this was going. Emily leaned back in her chair. "So, Alex, you have that nice apartment downtown, right?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah." "Well," she continued, "I was thinking maybe I could stay with you for a few months." My fork froze in midair. There it was, the real reason for this family reunion. My parents quickly jumped in. "Just temporarily," my mom said. "Until she saves enough money," my dad added. Emily smiled like it was already decided. I felt something familiar rising in my chest. Not anger, not even frustration, just exhaustion. Because the pattern was so obvious. Step 1, Emily messes up. Step 2, parents panic. Step 3, Alex fixes everything. It had been like that my whole life. But this time, I had something they didn't expect. Boundaries. I put my fork down and looked at Emily. No. The table went silent. Emily blinked. "What?" I said no, I repeated calmly. My mom looked shocked. "Alex, it would only be temporary." "I know," I interrupted. "And the debt was temporary too, right?" My dad frowned. "That's not fair." I looked at him. "No, what wasn't fair was telling me you couldn't afford my college while paying for Emily's." The room went quiet again. Emily suddenly slammed her hand on the table. "Oh my God, are you still stuck on that?" Her voice was sharp now. "That was years ago, Alex." I stared at her. "You're right," I said. "It was years ago." Which makes it even sadder that nothing has changed. That's when Emily laughed, a cold laugh. "You want to know something funny?" she said. My parents looked confused. "What?" my dad asked. Emily shrugged. "I actually quit my job last week." My mom's face went pale. "You what?" Emily rolled her eyes. "It was boring and the pay sucked." Then she looked at me again. "That's why I thought staying with you made sense." The room felt like it had lost all oxygen. My parents had no idea. They thought she was doing well, moving forward. But Emily had already gone back to the same pattern. My dad looked devastated. "Emily, why would you do that?" She shrugged again. "I'll find something else eventually." That was the moment I realized something important. Emily had never changed. She had never needed to, because my parents had always protected her from consequences. Until now. I stood up. "Good luck," I said. My mom looked panicked. "Alex, please don't leave." But I shook my head. This isn't my responsibility anymore. Then I walked out. Again. 6 months passed. No phone calls, no drama, just peace. Then one day I got a message from my mom. Just one sentence. Emily finally moved out. Apparently, my parents had finally stopped rescuing her. She had to get a job, pay rent, and live like an adult for the first time in her life.
A week later, Emily sent me a message, just 3 words. You were right. No explanation, no apology. But honestly, it was the most honest thing she had ever said to me. After Emily's message, you were right, I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to ignore her, but because I genuinely didn't know what to say. For most of my life, Emily had been the person who never admitted she was wrong. So those 3 words felt strange, almost unreal. Weeks passed. Life stayed quiet, and honestly, for the first time in years, I felt something I wasn't used to feeling when it came to my family: peace. One evening, there was a knock on my apartment door. I opened it and froze. Emily was standing there. She looked different, not the confident, entitled version I grew up with. She looked tired, real, older somehow. I know you probably don't want to see me, she said quietly. I crossed my arms. Then why are you here? She hesitated. Because I think I finally understand something. We sat in my living room. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then Emily sighed. You know why I was always like that growing up? I shrugged. Because Mom and Dad let you. She nodded slowly. Yeah, but it's worse than that. She stared at the floor. They didn't just spoil me. That caught my attention. What do you mean? Emily looked up at me. When we were kids, Mom used to tell me something. My stomach tightened. What? She took a deep breath. She told me I had to be the successful one because you were too quiet and too sensitive to survive in the real world. I blinked. What? Emily nodded slowly. She said you wouldn't make it unless someone pushed you harder. Suddenly, everything made sense. The pressure, the criticism, the way they treated us differently. Emily continued speaking. I thought they believed in me more, she said, but the truth is, they were just afraid. Afraid you wouldn't succeed, and afraid I would fail. She laughed bitterly. And guess what? I failed anyway. Then Emily said something I never expected. I used to hate you. I stared at her. What? She nodded. Because no matter how much they praised me, you kept moving forward. She used harder words. You worked harder than anyone I knew. You built your life on your own. She looked around my apartment. You actually earned everything here. That was the first real compliment I had ever heard from my sister. Emily finally looked me straight in the eyes. I'm sorry. 3 simple words, but this time they meant something. I treated you like you owed me your help. I acted like the world should fix my mistakes. She paused. But the truth is, I was just scared. After that night, things slowly started changing. Emily found another job. Nothing glamorous, just a normal office job. But she stuck with it for over a year, which for Emily was basically a miracle. One day, my parents invited both of us to dinner again. This time, something felt different. My dad looked nervous. My mom kept glancing at me. Finally, my dad cleared his throat. We owe you an apology. I nearly dropped my fork. Those words had never been spoken in my family before. We treated you unfairly growing up, he said. My mom nodded. We thought pushing you harder would make you stronger. And it did, she said softly, but we didn't realize how much it hurt you. Driving home that night, I thought about everything. My childhood, the favoritism, the resentment, and the years of silence between us. Then I realized something surprising. My parents created a golden child, but they also created something else, someone who learned how to survive alone. And sometimes that turns out to be the stronger outcome. Families aren't perfect. Sometimes parents make huge mistakes without realizing the damage. Sometimes siblings grow up believing lies about each other. But growth happens the moment people finally say, I was wrong. And in my family, that moment just took about 20 years to arrive.